what that information is. And then, only then do we experience. We don't experience the take in, we experience our own retelling of what we take in. And predictive processing paradigm is basically saying that all we experience when we go about our stuff in the world is our predictions of what will happen next.
What Tor Nørretranders just described is not a quirk of neuroscience. It is the architecture of a transmitter. Your eyes are not cameras recording the world outside. They are projectors, casting a pre-built signal outward, collapsing the infinite into the narrow frame your nervous system already decided to expect. You feel like reality is happening to you, like you are the receiver. But the documented science says otherwise. And what Michio Kushi recorded in archives that were catalogued and then quietly buried goes even further than that. There is a pattern running underneath the entire history of human civilization. It has been operating beneath philosophy, beneath religion, beneath every system that ever tried to explain why we suffer or why we thrive. And once you see it, you genuinely cannot unsee it. It will reorganize everything. Here is what the pattern says. Your brain does not wait for the world to show up and then process it. Your brain renders the world first. It builds a full simulation, textures, depth, meaning, threat, safety, and then sends that simulation downward through your visual cortex before a single photon from outside has had a chance to confirm it. Neuroscientists have measured this. Roughly 80 to 90% of the input flowing through your visual cortex at any given moment is not coming from your eyes. It is coming from inside your skull. Top-down prediction traffic. Internal signal dominating external signal by an extraordinary margin. And here is where it gets important. Tor Nørretranders calculated that your eyes receive approximately 11 million bits of information every second. Your conscious mind processes around 40 to 50 of those bits. 40 to 50 out of 11 million. That is not perception. That is a ruthless editorial decision made entirely without your consent. Michio Kushi, a Japanese scientist and philosopher whose work touched the Smithsonian Institution and was later pushed to the margins of mainstream discourse, arrived at the same threshold from a completely different direction. His framework for how perception operates as a tuning mechanism, not a mirror, converges precisely with what the most recent neuroscience is now confirming. That convergence is not an accident, and later in this video, you are going to receive a practical protocol built directly from that convergence, something you can apply to the way you move through your day. Something that rewrites the scene your nervous system keeps generating on autopilot. Stay with me through this entire thing, because the pattern we are tracing does not reveal itself in pieces. It reveals itself whole, and you are already inside it. Let us name the layer we are standing on right now. The layer is this. You are not watching reality, you are rendering it. This is not a metaphor. This is a documented mechanism, with a name, a date, and 2 researchers attached to it. In 1999, neuroscientists Rajesh Rao and Dana Ballard published a paper that formalized what is now called predictive processing. Their model demonstrated that the visual cortex does not function as a passive receiver waiting to be filled by the outside world. It functions as a prediction engine. Higher cortical areas constantly send top-down signals, expectations, templates, prior probabilities, down through the visual hierarchy. The lower areas, the ones closest to your actual eyes, spend most of their time processing the difference between what was predicted and what arrived. The error signal, the correction, not the raw image, the gap between the model and the world. Read that again slowly. Your brain builds the picture first, then it checks, then it adjusts, slightly, minimally, just enough to keep the simulation coherent. The world you see is 90% construction and 10% confirmation. So what is actually arriving through your eyes? 11 million bits per second, as Nørretranders measured. Light, frequency, contrast, edge, motion. An overwhelming flood of raw signal. And your conscious mind, the you that feels like it is watching, receives 40 to 50 bits of that. 40 to 50 bits selected, shaped, and delivered by a rendering process that completed itself before you had any say in the matter. Now here is the question that changes the direction of everything. If your brain is building the scene before your eyes confirm it, who wrote the original template? Where did the prediction come from? What trained the rendering engine? The answer is everything that happened before this moment. Every threat your nervous system logged. Every pattern your childhood encoded as safe or dangerous. Every belief you absorbed before you had the language to question it. Your rendering engine is running on software you did not consciously install, and it is projecting that software outward and calling the result reality. This is not a small claim. This is a civilizational claim. Because if every human being is walking through a self-generated projection, then every conflict, every misunderstanding, every institution built on the assumption that we all see the same world, every single one of those structures is built on a foundation that does not exist in the way we assumed. We have been designing social systems, educational systems, medical systems, around the premise that perception is a mirror, that we are all looking at the same thing and disagreeing about what to do with it. But the neuroscience says we are not looking at the same thing. We are each looking at our own rendering. And we have been doing this for the entire recorded span of human history. The mystery schools knew this, not in the language of cortical prediction hierarchies, but in the language of the veil, Maya in the Vedic tradition. The cave in Plato's allegory, the distinction between the world of appearance and the world of what is actually present. These were not primitive attempts at philosophy. They were precise technical descriptions of the rendering problem, encoded in symbol because the people who understood it knew that most institutions would prefer you didn't. Now, here is the decode move. If the visual cortex is dominated by top-down internal signal, if your prediction engine is generating the scene and your eyes are mostly confirming a pre-existing model, then the act of seeing is not passive. It is creative. You are not a witness to your life. You are the author of the version of it you inhabit, every moment, without interruption, whether you are conscious of it or not. That is the layer, that is the mechanism, and once you feel the weight of it, something shifts. Because if you are authoring the scene, then the scene can be rewritten, not by willpower, not by positive thinking, by something more precise and more fundamental than either of those things. But here is what the neuroscientists, even Rao, even Ballard, even Nørretranders with his extraordinary precision, did not go near. Michio Kushi went further. He mapped the rendering engine onto the body itself, onto specific organs, onto specific energetic pathways that Eastern medicine had been charting for thousands of years. He located the source of the prediction template not just in the brain, but in the biological field that feeds the brain. And what he found, what he documented, and what was subsequently pushed to the outermost edge of acceptable discourse, is the piece that changes everything. There is a layer beneath the neuroscience, a layer that Western laboratory culture has no instrument calibrated to measure, and so it simply pretends the layer does not exist. But it was mapped, in extraordinary detail, thousands of years before the first fMRI machine ever hummed to life. East Asian medicine does not treat the eye as an isolated organ. It treats the eye as the external flowering of an internal energetic current. Specifically, in the classical tradition, the liver meridian opens directly into the eyes. Qi, the animating frequency that runs through every living system, is governed and distributed by the liver, and that same qi is what determines the quality, the clarity, and the very reach of your visual field. This is not metaphor. This is a functional map. When the liver qi is stagnant or congested, the visual field contracts. When the liver qi flows freely and cleanly, perception expands. The eyes do not just reflect the body's condition, they express it, they transmit it outward into the world. So here is the question that this tradition has been asking for centuries. What happens to the quality of your perception when you purify the biological field that generates it? And the answer, documented and taught by Michio Kushi, one of the most systematically marginalized health philosophers of the 20th century, is this: the field changes. And when the field changes, the gaze changes. And when the gaze changes, what you see reorganizes around you. Kushi spent decades mapping the relationship between diet.
Before we continue, some of what I've learned simply never makes it onto YouTube. That's why we have Insights Academy, a free newsletter where I go deeper into hidden knowledge, ancient wisdom, metaphysics, and the nature of consciousness. The knowledge we don't share in these videos. And when you sign up, you'll receive the Kabbalion as a welcome gift. You'll find it through the link in the description below or by scanning the QR code on your screen. I'll give you a moment to do that.
Biological energy and consciousness. He wasn't speaking in abstractions, he was speaking in mechanisms. He documented, with the precision of someone who had studied both Eastern medicine and Western biology, how the purification of the body's internal environment through specific nutritional practice directly alters the frequency signature of the perceptual system. The liver clears, the qi flows. The eyes, which are the liver's sensory antenna, begin to transmit a different signal outward. And the world, as perceived through that signal, reorganizes. Different patterns emerge. Different opportunities surface. Different people suddenly appear in your field, as if from nowhere. The institutions that prefer you believe perception is passive, fixed, and beyond your influence do not teach Kushi. They never have. His work was pushed to the margins not because it was wrong, but because the implications of it being right are too destabilizing for a system built on the premise that you are a receiver, helpless before whatever reality chooses to broadcast at you. Now, here is where it connects to the laboratory. In 2008, Yukiyasu Kamitani and his team at ATR Computational Neuroscience Laboratories in Japan published something extraordinary. Using fMRI scanning, they demonstrated that the brain's visual cortex generates and holds detailed inner imagery that can be reconstructed from brain activity alone, without any external visual input. The dreaming brain, the meditating brain, the imagining brain, all of them producing visual content that the scanning equipment could read and partially reconstruct. The inner image is real. It has a measurable structure. It is not a ghost, it is a signal. Kamitani's work confirms what Kushi was pointing at from the biological side. The visual system does not wait passively for the world to send it something. It generates, it projects, it transmits. The inner state produces inner imagery, and that imagery is the template through which the outer world is then interpreted, filtered, and selectively rendered. This is the decode move. Write it somewhere, you will see it again. The outer scene does not determine the inner image. The inner image determines which version of the outer scene you are capable of perceiving. Purify the field that generates the image, the liver, the chi, the biological substrate of perception, and the outer scene does not stay the same. It cannot, because you are no longer transmitting the same frequency into it. Civilizations understood this. The ancient Egyptians structured entire dietary and ritual protocols around the preparation of the sensory field before ceremony. The Taoist tradition mapped the body's energetic rivers with a sophistication that modern biophysics is only now beginning to approach, with tools like gas discharge, visualization, and bioelectromagnetic field research. These weren't superstitions, they were technologies for tuning the transmitter. And what Kushi added to this lineage, what made his contribution both invaluable and inconvenient, was a practical, daily life protocol. Not a retreat, not a rare ceremony. A way of living that, sustained over time, systematically upgrades the biological instrument through which you render reality. The field is the lens. The lens determines the image. The image is the world you inhabit. And yet, there is still a piece missing. A piece that psychology discovered by accident, in a gymnasium, with a person in a gorilla suit. And what that experiment reveals about the nature of your attention will make everything we've just covered land with a weight you won't be able to ignore. Here is the layer that psychology stumbled into without fully understanding what it had found. It is not that hidden things are hidden from you, it is that you are tuned away from them. In 1999, cognitive psychologist Daniel Simons and his colleague Christopher Chabris ran an experiment at Harvard that would go on to become one of the most cited studies in the science of attention. Subjects were asked to watch a video of two teams passing basketballs and to count the number of passes made by one specific team. Partway through the video, a person in a full gorilla suit walked directly through the middle of the scene, stopped, beat their chest, and walked off. The gorilla was on screen for 9 full seconds. Roughly half of all subjects never saw it. Not because they were unintelligent, not because they were inattentive, but because their attention had been tuned to a specific frequency, counting passes, and the gorilla existed on a frequency they were not tuned to. It was not invisible, it was untuned. Simons called this inattentional blindness. But that name, clinical and cautious as it is, barely scratches the surface of what the finding actually means. Because here is the question that the study itself never asked, but that everything we have covered in this essay is now positioned to answer. What determines which frequency you are tuned to? And the answer is this. The inner field does. The biological and energetic substrate of your perceptual system, the chi, the liver, the quality of the inner imagery your visual cortex is already generating. This is the tuning dial. You are not choosing your frequency consciously, in the moment, by deliberate act of will. You are broadcasting it, continuously. And whatever exists on a different frequency than the one you are broadcasting simply does not collapse into your perceived reality. This is not mysticism dressed up in science. This is what the science is actually saying, once you allow the findings to speak to each other across the artificial disciplinary walls that keep them separated. Simons himself went on to document a related phenomenon called change blindness. In a series of stunning experiments, subjects failed to notice when a person they were speaking to was swapped out for an entirely different person during a brief visual interruption. The scene changed dramatically. The subjects didn't register it. Because the change occurred outside the narrow band of their current attentional frequency. Your reality is not a fixed broadcast you are passively receiving. It is a hologram being continuously collapsed out of a field of possibilities by the frequency you are transmitting. The gorilla isn't hiding, the opportunity isn't missing. The person you need to meet isn't absent from your life. You are simply tuned to a band that excludes them. Decode this. The gorilla is always there. The gorilla represents every resource, every connection, every insight, every shift in circumstance that exists in the field around you right now, but remains outside your rendered reality because your inner transmitter is calibrated to a frequency that cannot receive it. You do not need to search harder, you need to tune differently. And this is where Kushi's work stops being historical and starts being immediately practical. Because Kushi was not describing a philosophical position, he was leaving a protocol. A specific, documented, reproducible method for recalibrating the biological instrument, the liver, the chi, the inner field, so that the frequency you transmit begins to include what was previously invisible to you. The gorilla experiment is not a curiosity about human fallibility, it is a map that tells you exactly why two people can stand in the same room, look at the same situation, and walk away having inhabited entirely different realities. It is not a difference in intelligence. It is not a difference in luck. It is a difference in the frequency of the inner transmitter. And what comes next, what this entire essay has been building toward, is the part where you stop observing this and start applying it. The part where the knowledge moves from fascinating to operative. Because there is a practical protocol embedded in everything we have covered. And once you understand how to use it, you cannot go back to experiencing yourself as a passive receiver of whatever life decides to project at you. This is where the shift happens, right here. You stop being a victim of your own rendering. You realize the gaze is yours, the inner field is yours. The frequency is yours to tune. Eye focus, inner imagery, the quality of your environment, the purification of the chi, these are not abstract concepts. They are the levers of authorship. Your experience of this, what you notice shift, what suddenly appears in your life after your inner field changes, that belongs in the conversation below. Your insights consistently add dimensions to this map that I could not have charted alone. Drop them. They matter. The next layer of this initiation moves into sacred geometry and the neurochemistry of mystical states, the precise internal conditions under which perception expands beyond its ordinary bandwidth entirely. That is where this goes next. But return to where we began. The eye is not a receiver, it never was. It is a transmitter. And now you know what it is transmitting, and why, and how to change it. The eye that looks outward and the world it encounters are not separate things meeting across a gap. You are authoring the encounter. You always have been. See you at dawn. Leave what you see below. Your insight completes the pattern for everyone who arrives after you. And if this initiation has opened something in you, continue it. There is more waiting.